Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton. You and I know that strong communication skills are vital for success in your business. Your communication skills impact your sales, your management, your leadership, your customer service, your image, and very importantly, yes, your profits. And so that's why every week on the Biz Communication Show, video and podcast, I bring on a guest who is a recognized communication professional expert. And today we have a wonderful guest that we will all learn a lot from. Let me introduce to you, before she comes onto the screen, Ann Bruce. Ann Bruce, headquartered in Ventura, California, has written more than 20 books, read by more than 500,000 readers, and translated into 36 languages, McGraw-Hill being her most prominent publisher. She's a popular coach for those who want to speak for a living or write books. Ann's prestigious client list includes Geico, the Ritz-Carlton, Coca-Cola, and Sprint, among many others. And she has been interviewed repeatedly by the major news organizations. So this interview today is something she's very comfortable with. Here's a reflection of her prominence as a communication professional. In May of 2018, she will be one of the featured speakers at the Association of Training and Development International Conference and Exposition. And it's important for us to note that the main keynote speaker will be former President Barack Obama. Her presentation will revolve around the second edition of her book titled Speak for a Living, co-authored by Sardik Love. I know that you and I are going to benefit tremendously today from the insights we get from Ann Bruce. And so I am glad to welcome now the True North Relationship author and speaker, Ann Bruce.
Hi, Bill. Hello, it's so good to be here.
Hello, Ann. It's great to have you with us. I have not had the privilege of meeting you in person, but in many ways I feel that I know you because of so much that others have said about you, because of your books, and because of the way we've gotten acquainted as we prepared for the interview. And speaking of interviews, I think a very logical place to start would be this. Let's say that a business executive comes to you and says, Ann, I have a very significant opportunity next week. I'm going to be interviewed on either radio or television or both. And I need to make sure that I make a very strong, favorable impression and get my message across as well. Let's say this is one of your coaching clients. How would you help this person prepare for that interview?
That is a great question because I'm faced with it all of the time. I take into consideration the individual, first and foremost, presentation of their body. Sit up straight wherever you are doing that interview, or stand up straight. You'd be surprised how many people start to slump over when they're on the spot or being interviewed, especially if it's a media crisis situation. And if it's just a regular interview, you've got to think in terms of really powerful and impactful sound bites. Say something that is in a sentence. Don't ramble on, and don't market yourself or your company by mumbling. There's a tendency when the nerves set in to start mumbling or rambling. So sound bites are key.
It's interesting, and I know that it was several years ago I read that the length of the average sound bite when someone is being interviewed on the media, the length of the average sound bite has changed tremendously. That probably back in the early days of television, if someone were asked a question, they could go for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes. But Now it's probably narrowed down to maybe 30, 35 seconds, right?
Correct. 30 seconds would be on the outside, and typically it's less than that. So you've got to hit the mark right away. So how do I prepare a client? We drill down. We practice, 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 practice. And I'll play devil's advocate. I'll throw them a few curveballs. I'll help them to create sound bites that are winning. Of course, they must be accurate and they must be factual. They must be from the heart. That's a key communication component because audiences are not stupid. They know when they are being taken for a ride, when someone is misleading them or someone is not speaking the truth. And so that authenticity must come through. I have a pretty special way of extrapolating that from my clients.
I would assume that you're talking about rehearsals. I would assume that you're rehearsing with video.
Absolutely. We do everything. And we even do sort of I come from a television background, so I'm very used to cue cards and different things that ignite certain ideas and thinking. If you're on the set at Saturday Night Live, and I still work a lot in television, I'm in LA all the time doing this, you still have cue cards on the walls, even though you have a teleprompter. There are so many ways to trigger the way we present an idea. And so I give people lots of opportunity to find what works for them because, Bill, everyone processes information differently.
I like very much also what you said about posture. Our nonverbal communication could nullify the poise that we might give across verbally if, as you say, we're slouching or we're slumping. And I agree with you that particularly in a tense situation, if it's a crisis communication situation, incident, this is when you need to be very alert, look in control, look confident, because if you appear to be weak and withdrawn, uh, that does a great deal to destroy the positive approach and the zest and the confidence that you want to display.
Well, I love your approach on this, and we are on the same page. You must be compelling and speak with conviction. It sounds easy. It's not easy. And if you look weak and slumped over and mumbling and unsure, audiences will make assumptions in less than 3 seconds. It is boom, boom, boom. So you have to really concentrate on how do you bring that across. And I'll be very honest with you. I don't care if I'm working with a top CEO or someone who's sort of just getting their sea legs. Lack of confidence is the biggest issue I wind up dealing with in a communication setting. People lack confidence in themselves.
I would imagine too, and you didn't mention this, but I would imagine too that after you've gone through all of these video rehearsals, you probably tell your clients that you don't want it to look like something canned. It may be planned, but it's not to be canned. And you really want them to have a conversation with their interviewer.
That is the time after we've practiced that we start to now just pivot to speaking from the heart. Because if the message does not come from the heart and you're totally up here, there's going to be a disconnect with the audience. The audience feels you, the audience feels your words. It should be palpable to them. And if they are unsure because of how you say something or the way you present it or your lack of passion, or energy, people's energy, they're tired, they're on set. We can be on set all day long. By the time those cameras go on, everyone's a little bit tired. But you know what? That doesn't matter. You just grab it from down deep, you pull it up, and you are on. And you make sure you bring that energy through the camera to the people. It works every time, and I have seen lives transformed, and people just go to the stars because of it and get regular gigs on Ellen, or or call back to the White House many times to speak, or doing things on the platform that are remarkable. And it's the communication seed that grows that.
It reminds me very much of a phrase that I first picked up in college. I was active in dramatics, not any great starring roles, one or two, but for the most part, I was a bit player for a while until my senior year. And I remember so well, our drama coach said to us that you must give the illusion of the first time, because when the audience shows up, they don't want to think this is something you've rehearsed 20 or 30 times, or that you've already presented 5 times to other audiences. They want to think this is real, this is live, this is what the person is feeling. These motions are not something structured. Everything is happening live before us. So the illusion of the first time is what we're really getting to here. Do all the preparation, but then have a genuine, spontaneous conversation when each question comes to you.
That's right. And if you know your stuff, and that's practice and that's preparation, preparation is everything. It's just going to naturally flow. And if you really mean what you're saying, if you love what you're doing, people, the greatest compliment I can get is when someone reads one of my books, they'll say, wow, I felt like you were sitting here just talking to me across the table, and Bill and I are having coffee, and your book reads just like, you talk to me when we're hanging out having coffee at Starbucks. That is the greatest compliment. You're just like you are. When I saw you on stage, I didn't realize that when we all got together tonight, you're that same person. It's not about being phony or artificial. It is all about, if you really believe in yourself, in your cause, in your topic, and you're passionate, that is the fuel that will transfer to everyone around you, and more importantly to yourself, because you have to fuel you. We're living in a world where there's so much pulling on us, just daily life and concerns and so forth, and it can be very draining. So how do you fill your tank? Well, that's the question, is how do you boost yourself, fill your tank, mentor yourself? It's self-reliance, and it's important, and you have to bring that to the table.
How do you advise a client who's going to be going to an interview? What do you tell them about the phrase "no comment" in response to a question?
It very much depends on the situation. I have been in hot spots around the world, in political hot spots in the Middle East. I've been in very liberal, groundbreaking hot spots in San Francisco, California. I have been along with CEOs who are facing, very bad federal crime charges for whatever they may have done. And then I've been with movie stars who are just promoting their next movie, and are asked questions about their personal life. This happens quite a bit. I work with quite a few people in LA, and so you're promoting a movie, but they want to know about your love life, or they want to know about something, very personal about your kids or whatever. So the no comment thing, I think it's kind of old school feeling. I think there are lots of other ways to not address the question, and to not be rude to the interviewer, and to kind of correct and redirect what's happening in the moment. That's what I focus on. The no comment thing to me very much reminds me of when I started out in journalism and broadcast journalism. It's just too old school, and I don't like it. I like being able to guide that interviewer in a different direction, so he or she really, they're just going for the ride. They love it. They think you're awesome. And that is so doable if you just learn how to do it.
What I advise clients when they're dealing with a crisis communication situation is, instead of saying no comment, you could say, I can't comment on that now because we have not done the information gathering that we need to do. And so we'll get back with you as soon as we get that information. And of course, the thing you have to do is to make sure that you fulfill that promise. If you say you're going to get back to them, you do it, or else you're worse off. And let's switch for a minute here. Above your head the entire time we're talking the word writer, and gosh, you deserve that with so many publications and so many readers, such successful books. One of the things I'd like to ask you is that it seems that you have built your entire message around what you call true north. Explain that to us, please.
Well, when I started out, first of all, I've been writing every day of my life since I was 6 years old. So instead of asking for a Barbie doll at Christmas, I asked for what was then a Tom Thumb little red plastic typewriter, and I got that. I've been writing every day since I was 6. So I am, by nature, right here, a writer, and I'm very proud of that. It's a very, in my opinion, very noble profession, and I've made my living doing it. It's not a hobby, so I'm very proud. I started out with a brand that said I was the authority on motivational leadership, and I was, and I am, I still do that quite often, speaking on my books and leadership and communications and motivation, all those cool things. So I became the authority on motivational leadership, and still am. But when I wrote Discover True North, which was probably 4 or 5 books into my career, that was a self-development book. I don't say self-help. I just like to say self-development. And so that made me what they call a crossover writer. And when I did that book, and frankly, it came out of the gate not really strong, True North, because I had Dr. Phil to compete with, and Martha Beck to compete with, and Oprah Winfrey to compete with. Everybody had something going on, and I sort of fell back in the shadows. But I stayed in love with that book. I stayed in love with the message, which is we all have an inner guidance system. If you use it, it will always direct you in the right direction. It never fails. And through the years, I've built this underground kind of groundswell of enthusiasm, support, readership. And so it became a best-selling life coaching book, and I am forever grateful. And the True North brand was born. So sometimes, I really encourage your viewers to remember, sometimes we work so hard to find the right thing and push the boulder up the hill and get that deal and make this happen. Sometimes when it comes to you, and you just let up a minute and let it come to you, it's precise and your equilibrium just hums. It's perfect.
Very well explained. Thank you. And in my case, my signature theme a good while back became always push the up button. And I told a story about when I was getting into an elevator one time, and a lady nearby said, "Life is like an elevator. And it's got an up button and a down button too." And she talked about, we decide which button we push. I don't remember that lady's name, but I've given that theme many times. And I say that every day we have a choice. And if we push that up button, it's miraculous how some great things are going to happen to us. If we push that down button mentally, the minute we step out of our comfortable bed, the converse of that is going to happen. So one of the important things for all of us, even if we're not a speaker, even if we're not a writer, whatever your profession, find some important theme that speaks what you really believe and what you really are. Is that right?
Yes. And I love the elevator story. That it is so awesome because it ties in with something I write about called choice intelligence. We make choices, that choice to push that up button. And one of the things I really want to get across before we say goodbye today is that there's so much emphasis on passion. And sometimes if you don't have a passion, there's so many people who are brilliant and they love so many things, but they don't have one passion that drives them. I'm fortunate. I knew at age 6 what my passion was. Most people do not. And so they feel inadequate. They feel like, what's wrong with me? I should have a passion. Every book I pick up talks about passion. It is okay not to have a passion. You might do lots of things really well or really love doing lots of things differently. It could be it may be wine tasting. It may be, making great Italian food. It may be writing your memoir. There can be many passions. You don't have to have one thing that is the end all for, because people start to feel lesser because they don't have that. And frankly, that's really more common than someone who knows right out of the gate what they want to do. So you can embrace those little things and put them all together. And I think that really makes you super cool. And I think I have great admiration for people who can do that. And so look at that aspect of it.
And we've got time for just one more tip from you. You said very early on in the interview that many people lack confidence, and you coach speakers. Give us one of your tips that you share to help people control their stage fright.
Well, I let my clients know you tell the world who you are by how you communicate. So what are we telling the world? And stage fright, here's a little behind the scenes secret. I suffered from such severe stage fright as a young person. I would pass out on stage. I mean, faint. And so it was a tremendous hurdle for me. But I'm one of those people, if you think somebody says, oh, you can't do this, you're going to overcome it. And I'm a big believer in facing your fear. That was a fear. I faced it. And who would have thought I'd make my living speaking for a living and writing for a living, which puts you in front of the public. So I remind people who are my clients the importance of facing that fear. Let's kind of find out where it comes from, and maybe we can work on that a little bit, because that helps. If you know where you've been and where you are, you can kind of predict where you're going. And as simple as this sounds, as elementary as it sounds, if more people, especially women, listen up women, would learn to breathe. I do breathing before I go on stage, before I do interviews, before I met you today and we did this interview. Breathing is the first thing you do when you come into this world. It's the last thing you do when you leave it. The medicinal aspects of it, and I don't mean breathing to your throat or to your lungs, I mean breathing to your hips. When you learn to do that, wow, oxygen gets to your brain, fear goes away, and you are awesome. So get someone to work with you on that. I do that with my clients, and I see tremendous transformation in front of me. I love it. It's exciting.
And it's amazing. We're both back on the screen now because it's time to wind up our conversation.
I don't want to go.
I don't want to go either. The one request that I have is that a couple of 3 months down the road, we can continue this conversation again.
I would be honored. Thank you. I would be honored.
Thanks for all the wonderful information, tips, advice, strategies today from your marvelously productive career and your triumphant life. Please give us your contact information. I know that those who are watching our video and those who are listening to our podcast would like to know how to get in touch with you.
Really simple, AnneBruce.com, ANNE, and then Bruce, like the boy's name.com. Simplest way to get a hold of me. My phone number's there, everything's there. And if you do tweet, I'm at True North Author. And because you gotta be in love with your work, here's my book, Discover True North. So when you're at Barnes & Noble or go to Amazon, you'll know what it looks like. There are lots of True North kinds of books out there. I'd love you to join the expedition. You, Bill, in particular, you're such a leader. I follow you in your expedition, and you motivate me and you inspire me, and you're the kind of person I like to surround myself with. So I like to, in turn, do that for people who are trying to find their true north.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And since you've given your contact information, I'm happy to share mine. the Biz Communication Guy. So quite logically, my website, bizcommunicationguy.com. I invite you to visit my website so that you can see a description of my services for individuals and for companies. Sign up for my newsletter, register for my podcast, and I look forward to having further contact with you. Again, it's been such a pleasure to host Ann Bruce. I know that you will want to order her books, subscribe to her online opportunities, and learn from this tremendous communication professional. Ann, any parting words?
Many thanks. I feel so much gratitude for having had the opportunity today. So I wish everyone a very happy holiday season coming up. And thank you again for including me, Bill. It was totally just a blast to be here. And I wish we could do it all day. It's just terrific. Thank you.
As your client, Ritz-Carlton, would say, my pleasure. And I want to thank everyone who has been with us today. Be sure to be with us next week as well, when we will share a conversation with another tremendous communication professional on the Biz Communication Show.